With the next Union Arena Regional coming up in just a few days, I wanted to get you guys a new ruling video for the two most recent sets, Rurouni Kenshin and Hunter x Hunter Volume 2. Welcome back to the channel everyone, my name is Damos and I'm a level 1 Union Arena judge through Bandai Organized Play. And as you can probably tell by the title of this video, we have both a new official ruling as well as a brand new rule change to the game itself. Starting with the rulings, I've got 13 different ruling questions for you today, so try and see how many you get right and let me know down in the comments below. As always with these videos, if you have a question of your own, feel free to leave a comment or make sure to check out the official website's frequently asked questions page as it may already be answered. I'll leave a link in the description below for everyone. The frequently asked questions page has all the official rulings that the developers post themselves, but the official rulings I've provided on my channel previously, as well as in today's video, are all from the Bandai Organized Play Discord from our level 0 judge who has contact with Bandai directly. So let's hop right in, starting off with the official ruling. The question is, if I use the activate main ability on this Kenshin and another Kenshin is played afterwards, or this Kenshin is no longer on the field during that turn, will those Kenshins still lose their during your turn abilities? So essentially at any point after this Kenshin resolves, do any and all Kenshins on your field still lose their during your turn abilities? Here's the answer. All Kenshin Humuro on your field or played during that turn lose their during your turn abilities. The activate main ability applies to the player and not the characters currently on the field, thus providing that ability to any Kenshin played that turn. So yes, if you plan on using this Kenshin during the turn, it's probably a good idea to start your main phase by activating his ability so you can start with an extra card in your hand to make your plays. There was a lot of confusion going into the LA Regional with this card, as some players believed the ability was affecting the field and not the player, which would only make the Kenshin currently on your field lose their during your turn abilities. And during the LA Regional, this ruling was broadcast over the intercom as it was such a hot topic and we had only received word on it 2 days prior. So make sure if you're playing with this card or against it, you know your ruling so you don't lose to someone playing incorrectly. And since the official ruling was about Kenshin, let's continue with some more Kenshin rulings first. Here's the question. What happens when a red Kenshin with the during your turn ability to move a character to the energy line instead of sideline battles against a character that cannot move? So as you can see, I have here two red Kenshin as examples who both have the during your turn ability mentioned in the question. So what happens when these characters battle a character who cannot be moved to the energy line? Here's the answer. If the defending character's BP is equal or lower, the Kenshin will still win the battle. The losing character will not move to the energy line or be sidelined. It will switch to resting on the front line as it has now blocked. Impact damage will still apply normally. Impact only requires you to win the battle, so the raid Kenshin shown will still deal damage if it wins the battle, even if your opponent blocks and nothing happens to the character. The characters that cannot be moved will essentially provide a free block as they cannot be sidelined due to Kenshin's ability and cannot be moved due to their own. Moving on to the next ruling question, how does this Sanosuke interact with characters that can freeze characters? Now, freeze is an unofficial term that some players use to signify a card being rested for more than the normal cycle. Let's look at the card starting with this Sanosuke. His ability says, if on the front line, once per turn, when this active character is switched to resting by one of your or your opponent's abilities, switch this character to active. Moving to Toshiro, his ability says, choose up to one character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. It will remain set to resting until the end of their next attack phase. And lastly, the Rukia says, when played, if on the front line, choose up to one character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. If it is your turn and there is a character with 2 or more base AP cost on your front line, switch it to resting. The chosen character remains set to resting until this character leaves the front line instead. So now that we know what these cards say, let's look at the answer. Both Toshiro and Rukia state specific times in which the character can switch back to active. This overrides Sanosuke's ability Sanosuke will remain rested until that specified time. Now this question and answer may have sparked another question in your head. How does this Sanosuke interact with the yellow color trigger and abilities like it? As you can see here, we have Razor, who not only has a yellow color trigger, but also has the Wind Plate ability to rest a character and have it remain set to resting the next time it would be switched to active. For this answer, if this Sanosuke is chosen by a yellow color trigger, it will attempt to switch itself to active and use up the "it will remain set to resting the next time it would be switched to active" ability. In this example, if no other abilities occur, Sanosuke will switch to active at the end of the attack phase. Same goes for if it's chosen by another ability like the color trigger, he will attempt to switch to active using up that next time requirement. For our next question, we have Kaoru, and this one's pretty straightforward. Does the activate main ability of this Kaoru stack? Let's look at the answer. Yes. If multiple are played in a single turn and you activate them while choosing the same card, the opponent would be required to place multiple cards into the sideline if they wanted to choose the chosen card with any type of abilities, characters, events, sites, or triggers. Just remember, this Kaoru can only use her activate main ability the turn she's played, so don't let another player try to stack this ability against you unless multiple have been played on the same turn. For our next color, we have purple, starting with the 6-cost Saito. The question asks, what's the order of this character's attack and Wind Plate ability if I attack from the energy line? And for this one, I felt it may be better to show the specific scenario this player is asking about, so let's take a look. Here we have the Saito player with 6 energy on the energy line and 2 6-cost Saitos in hand, while the opponent has an Action 2 Kenshin and a 3-cost Nullify Impact Kenshin on their front line. Let's play this out. So for the last action, the Saito player will use their last AP to raid and choose to keep the Saito on the energy line. They'll then proceed to their attack phase. If this character attacks from the energy line, you will switch him to resting, remove a card from the front line if necessary, move him to the front line, target a character for an attack with Snipe, in this case the Action 2 Kenshin, which will be sidelined, then apply Impact, dealing damage if Nullify Impact is not applicable. Hopefully that breakdown helped visualize how the order of everything happens. Next we have another question for this same card, so let's check that out. If this character is on the energy line, the turn after it is played, can it still attack from the energy line? So this player is asking if it gets swapped or pushed back to the energy line, can it still attack from the energy line? The answer is no. Saito will only retain the impact ability after the turn he is played. Everything on this card after the Wind Plate text is only applicable for the turn he's played, although that would be really cool if he could at least keep his ability to attack from the energy line. Next up, we have the other purple Kenshin deck and a question about Sojiro Saito. The question is, if I use the ability of the color trigger Sojiro Saito, raid on top of it, then use the raid's activate main ability, can I use the ability of the color trigger Sojiro again? Let's read these abilities real quick. First we have the color Sojiro, activate main if on the front line, once per turn. Look at the top card of your deck, then place it on the top of your deck or into the sideline. Then we have the raid Sojiro, activate main if on the front line, place the top card from this rated character on the top of your deck. You can only activate this Sojiro Saito ability one time each turn. Now take notice the two different types of ways these cards are worded. The color trigger Sojiro says once per turn, while the raid says you can only activate this Sojiro Saito ability one time each turn. That difference is key here. Let's look at the answer. Yes, the color trigger Sojiro will be treated as a new card after the card is unrated. Because the color Sojiro doesn't specifically name himself, if you play a second copy, or in this case unraid him, it will be treated as a completely different card which has not used that ability. Moving on to our next color, we have blue with Hanya. Here's the question. When Hanya is sidelined, if I place an Aoshi Shinomori with 2 or less required energy into my sideline, can I play that same card? And here's your answer. You can play the same card that was just placed into the sideline as long as it meets all requirements. This is a great question in my opinion, because it can be easy to miss, but Hanya's win sideline ability starts off by saying you may place one card from your hand into your sideline. Period. That's it. You have the choice to place something into your sideline, but you don't have to do anything else if you don't want to. So this means that you don't even have to have an Aoshi in your sideline to activate this ability, as the requirement for the ability is to just place a card into your sideline from your hand. You then get a potential benefit if you now have an Aoshi in your sideline after you've placed a card into your sideline. Sometimes these little things get missed when we read cards. For our last blue card, we have Kaiten Kenbu 6 Successions. Let's look at the question. If I have more than one Aoshi Shinomori to switch to resting, can I use this ability more than once? So let's read the ability. Choose one Aoshi Shinomori on your field. It loses 1000 BP and gains. At the end of this character's attack, you may switch one active Aoshi Shinomori on your field to resting. If you do, switch this character to active until the end of the turn. And here's the answer. Yes, this ability is not once per turn. At the end of the attack, which is after any blocks or any life triggers have resolved, if you still have an active Aoshi, you can choose to use this ability again. So this can potentially allow that Aoshi you select to attack up to 8 times if you have the correct amount of Aoshis on your field and you don't hit any triggers or abilities that would prevent it from attacking again, like a special or a yellow color trigger, or a character that would move the Aoshi to the energy line, or an ability that rests him and keeps him resting. Finally, we move on from Kenshin and have our Hunter x Hunter questions, starting with this Raid Gon. The question is, does Killua and Hisoka need to be on the same line as Gon for him to gain BP? Essentially, this player wants to know if Gon is on the front line and there's a Killua and Hisoka on the energy line, if the effect to gain BP will be active during the opponent's turn. Here's the answer. Both Killua and Hisoka need to be on the front line with Gon for the during opponent's turn ability to be active. I know that wording doesn't specifically say the same line as this card, but that's how this one works. Next up, we have a question for the other yellow deck in this set. The question is, if I choose not to sideline a Nen Beast affinity card, do I get to choose one of my AP cards and switch it to active? And the answer on this one is no. You must sideline a Nen Beast to apply all effects after the if you do text. So even though there is a period after the first ability separating the two, it is still included with the if you do portion of text. And here's another question involving this same Razor. If Killua chooses Razor for his ability, will Razor miss its activation window based on Killua not originally having impact and gaining impact only after the block is declared? So let's look at the abilities in question. First we have Killua. Activate main. If on the front line once per turn, choose one of your opponent's characters. If the chosen character is sidelined or blocks this character's attack this turn, this character gains impact 1. And then Razor's ability, when blocking, if your opponent's attacking character has impact, this character gains 2000 BP until the end of the turn. I definitely see how this one can be confusing. Here's your answer. Razor will still gain 2000 BP as Killua will have impact. When Killua attacks and Razor blocks, 2 abilities are simultaneously able to activate. As turn player, the Killua must resolve first, gaining impact, then the opponent's abilities will resolve after, resulting in Razor gaining BP as Killua now has impact. This is definitely one of those niche scenarios, and in this case it's best to not choose the Razor with Killua's ability because he will just be blocked and lose the battle, resulting in no impact damage being done. Next up we have the brand new rule change for Union Arena. Let's read. Before the change, checking the face of face down cards under cards on the field is prohibited for both players. After the change, checking the face of face down cards under cards on the field is permitted for only the player whose cards they are. you may check the card placed face down from the top of your deck under this character after the ability has resolved. This change was also made to the Asia version of the game as well, who had been playing with the previous rule set for 2.5 years, while we had only been playing that way for a single year. And even then, we only ever had cards that placed face down cards underneath them for a few months. However, now with Black Clover getting that Asta that was initially kept from us, along with the new Hunter x Hunter Dodgeball deck, this game mechanic may become a bit more popular. Overall, I think it's a great change, but there was a question I saw come up about this rule change, so I threw together a quick scenario to go over it. Let's check that out. The question is, am I allowed to choose which face down card to sideline? So in this situation, at the start of the turn, the player has to resolve this 5-cost Asta as it's on the front line and there are multiple face down cards underneath the raid. So let's read Asta. If on the front line, at the start of your turn, place the top card from this rated character into your sideline. If this character has a face down card under it, place one face down card under this character into your sideline instead. And now why is this important to be able to choose now that you can look at the cards underneath this Asta? Well, if you see in the player's hand, they have a Raid Noel Silva who says, when played, this character gains all abilities listed below until the end of the turn if you have the required number of events in your sideline. 2 or more, this character cannot be blocked by a character with 3000 or less BP. 4 or more, your opponent must block this character's attack if able. And looking at their sideline, they have 3 events currently in the sideline. So if there is an event card underneath the Asta, you'd want to sideline that, as the player's plan is to raid the Noel to get the most out of her ability. So going back to the Asta and attempting to resolve the ability, is it possible to sideline any face down card you choose with the new rule change? The answer is yes. The Asta states one face down card, not the top card or any other specification. So in this case, there is an event card underneath and you place it in the sideline. You now have 4 events in the sideline for Noel's full ability. You'll then draw for turn like normal and proceed through the rest of your turn. If you weren't specifically playing Black Clover, you may not really have known about this rule, or even at the local and casual level, you may not have really cared if your opponent looked at the cards. But now you don't have to worry about it in any setting, as the player can now look at their cards and make decisions based on that. Overall, a nice rule change, so thank you to the developers. And that's all I have for you in this video. If you're going to the regional up in Canada, make sure to show off your list if you're in the top 16 so we can get those results as soon as possible. Hopefully this video helped you with some of the newer cards that are released, and I appreciate you watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Union Arena content, and I'll see you all in the next video.